melanated people arrived on these shores we now call North America. They arrived here, as someone just recently said, as indentured servants, but we kind of know they were slaves. Luckily enough, we have history to prove that, and that's why I have these in front of me right here. These are slave shackles. Every one of us who's melanated has somebody that brought us here, related to us, that looked like us, that was imprisoned in these. Every melanated soul on these shores and through most of the continental Americas, including the Caribbean, this is what binds us, these slave shackles. And you'll notice these slave shackles are closed. There's a lock on them. That means that the last soul that was in these slave shackles is still there. Because as you know, the only time they open them is to let you out so they can resell you. So this is right here what our belief is in coming out of the darkness, as Dr. King said, and as Malcolm witnessed. It's coming out of the darkness that Black History Month allows us to do that. So come out of the darkness with me for a few minutes as we do a tribute to the night of the Negro spiritual. See, because for me, Black history doesn't start here. It doesn't start in our bondage state here in America. So tonight, without any further ado, I place you in the most capable hands of my brother. And I mean that, because he owed me money. All right, now y'all know, I ain't asking for it back. I'm just telling you he owed me, so that's how you know he's my brother. If he was my friend, I'll be like, well, you seen him? No, my brother could hold on to my money because what he does, in the contrary of people up here do, I cannot do. It's opening our soul to give us the humanity we need to fortify us and to become armor in this cloudy time. Without any further ado, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. This is the 6th annual Kemet in the Desert Series, 2019. Mr. Oscar Robinson will take you and enjoy. And get some sunshine in your face. Come on, Jabari.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7th annual Kemet in the Desert. Black Weekend 2020, a near and platinum production. This entire series is dedicated to our founder and executive producer, Franklin G., our founder and executive producer. He is the co-host of Like It Is Radio and The Breakdown. He has been inducted into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. He has graduated from student verily to an ancestor. My partner, my brother, and my friend, Franklin G. Verily III. I salute you. He only had a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon him, he couldn't refuse it, he didn't seek it, he didn't choose it, but it was up to him to use it. He had been the count if he abused it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity was in it, cause he only had a minute.
Arrow chariot comes, I'm gonna leave you. I'm bound for the promised land. I'm gonna leave you. I'm sorry, I'm gonna leave you. Farewell, oh farewell, but I'll meet you in the morning. Farewell, oh farewell, I'll meet you in the morning. I'm bound for the promised land, on the other side of Jordan. Bound for the promised land. I'm sorry, I'm gonna leave you. Farewell, oh farewell, but I'll meet you in the morning. Farewell, oh farewell, oh, I'll meet you in the morning. Farewell, oh farewell, oh, I'll meet you in the morning.
Because you are now enrolled in Kemet in the Desert University. Kemet means black, and the blacker the college, the sweeter the knowledge, baby. Let's get ready to rumble! Let me no introduction. Bringing in the keynote speakers for session, Olibisie, African Dance Ensemble. Give it up!
aka Advanced Knowledge of Power 88's The Breakdown, here to introduce your keynote speaker to you. Yeah, go ahead, make some noise, let me see it. We have author, historian, high priest, Professor Osaze in the building. He uses his education and skills to empower students with ancestral wisdom and teachings. Partnering with his wife, Anika, they have led tours to the African continent with an emphasis on Kemet over the last 20 years. Please, Las Vegas, Kemet in the Desert 2020, please show some love in welcoming our keynote speaker, Professor Jabari Osaze. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
I greet you in the most ancient words of peace, coming from a land that gave civilization to the world. I'm speaking specifically of that land that has been misnomered Egypt. But tonight we're with the family. We don't need to use cheat notes. We're going to speak in the language that our ancestors brought to the world in excellence. So I greet you with the word hetepu, meaning blessings or peace. And I just need to say that I am so honored to be here in Las Vegas to greet and to work with the family in this city. Does the Las Vegas family make a joyful noise or what? When they tapped me to come up here, I was so engrossed, I was like, who tapped me? Oh, I'm supposed to speak. Because this was amazing. And so it is clear that your ancestors, our ancestors, smile upon us today. That you have brought Africa across the waters into this space. And so with that, I greet you once more. And I must say, before I continue, that I'm looking for an elder to give me permission to speak. Wow, thank you so much, elder. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me say to you that this is an auspicious occasion because we know that this wonderful event was put together by someone who is no longer with us in physical form. And we know that our dearest brother Franklin G. left this world in physical form less than a year ago. I know you are grieving. That brother came into my life most recently and I am grieving. I know that so many of you are grieving to have lost such an amazing dynamo, a warrior and a scholar for our people. I want you to remember, however, that our dearest brother can do more as an ancestor than he could in physical form. He is no longer encumbered with this physical form. He now can be anywhere at any time. He can now celebrate our family in any place at any time. So please, while I know that you are in mourning, recognize that our brother is here. Where else would he be? And he smiles upon us to continue his great work. So that I hope that your mourning is in the right place. It is truly time to celebrate all of those things that he brought to us. To celebrate the family. To celebrate our ancestors. And to celebrate our legacy. And so I am so pleased to be here with you. Tonight we're about to get it in. Let me give you a quick timeline. Very quick. I want you to understand that as you look at this, you're going to see, and this is just of ancient Kemet, you're going to see that the period of greatness of this great land begins long before 3100 BCE. What does BCE mean? Call it out. Before the Common Era. There was a point where we used to use the term before Christ. And so historians decided that it would be more appropriate to use the term BCE, before the Common Era, so that they were able to describe how history occurred without simply mentioning the Christian period. It didn't change the dates, but they at least changed the terminology. And so we see excellence long before this period in the pre-dynastic era. And we begin to see veritable Africans bring civilization into the world. Does anyone recognize this face here? Who said no? Raise your hand. Uh-oh, some of y'all doing some work now. Some of y'all doing some work. Now listen, let me say to you that if you turned on your cable TV at any hour of the day, you would see a number of documentaries focusing on Egypt. But what you won't see is the face of the man that joined two lands to create it. You must ask yourself, why? Well, I'd argue to you that the reason why we don't see his face is because his nose is wider than pretty much everybody in the room. His lips are thicker than anyone else in the room. This great African puts together perhaps the world's most important civilization. And this statue here, this head to a statue, is actually in the Petrie Museum in London today. I know that my queen, who was sitting back there, actually took me to see it for my birthday. And so it was an amazing experience. And I'm going to say to you, you would figure it'd be in a prominent place. It's just kind of sitting on a shelf. It's just sitting on a shelf. And so when we are clear about who these great Africans are, those notes are clearly turned down. Because there are many people who would like to argue that civilization, that all of humanity owes a debt to another group of people. Why, I have said that it is the greatest example of identity theft in the history of human civilization. You cannot deny these individuals. And then we move forward and we see the period after that, where we see the Old Kingdom. Say Old Kingdom with me. Old Kingdom. This is the period where we see the Merkuti, or the pyramids, built. This is the period where we see Kemet come together in excellence. And so it's a very important period. We move a bit forward and Kemet actually falls apart. Almost completely apart, in what historians today call the First Intermediate Period. It is so important for us to study this history, because you're going to figure out how our ancestors got back up when they fell down. You're not going to just hear about golden burials and tombs. You're actually going to see African excellence in practice. And so after falling down, we see they go into what is called the Middle Kingdom. Say Middle Kingdom with me. And that period is led by a man whose statue is so black, whose features are so African, that when you get to the part of the Cairo Museum where his statue sits, my wife and I have actually done this on several occasions. We just sit there and watch people. And they've come from different places, speaking different languages. And you see them look and speak to their guides. And their guides start scratching. How do I explain this away? This is the image of Africans giving civilization to the world. What is this king's name? His name is Mentuhotep II. Say Mentuhotep II. We have to say our ancestors' names in order for them to continue to live. I absolutely say sometimes that maybe one of the reasons why we're still catching hell is because we're not calling them. Because these amazing Africans are waiting to get into conversation with us on this plane. Now, I know you know the name of this ruler. What is his name? Okay, don't abbreviate his name. King Tut. Come on, give me his full name. Tutankhamun, right? And so you see this great ruler come forward in the 18th dynasty and does amazing things. Now, I'm going to skip past the New Kingdom really quickly and tell you about another period. After Kemet has another fall, we see these powerful kings come forward from the south to put things back together. This is in the 25th dynasty, and sometimes we call this the Cushitic dynasty. The dynasty of Nubians that come to put Kemet back together. This is a very important period. And so we need to understand that all of this takes place before we see prominent Europeans. All of this takes place before we have a name for a European nation. All of this takes place before, as one of my ancestors, your ancestors, Dr. John Henry Clark said, all of this excellence takes place before a European lived in a house with a window or wore a shoe. And so you have to understand the lengthy history that Africans have. This is just the most recent period. We could go back literally 40,000 years of recorded African history, where you see all of those things that are excellent today be brought into existence by Africans. But of course, this story was hidden from us. And this is one of the major culprits in the United States. His name is James Henry Breasted. Remember his name, but don't speak it. Remember we said about our ancestors? We don't need to speak his name. James Henry Breasted is often considered the father of American Egyptology. Listen to what he says about the story of how civilization comes into the world. He says, the population of the great northwest quadrant from the Stone Age onward has been a race of white men of varying physical type. The evolution of civilization has been the achievement of this great white race. Those are his capitals, not mine. On the south of the northwest quadrant lay the teeming black world of Africa. Those are his lack of capitalization, not mine. Separated from the great white race by an impassable desert barrier and unfitted by ages of tropical life for any effective intrusion among the white race. The Negro and Negroid peoples remained without any influence on the development of early civilization. This is the kind of racist claptrap that we are still studying in institutions of higher learning today. When the information is clear, someone said, why? One of the reasons why is because we don't control most of those institutions. One of those reasons why is because we have to develop more scholars, more individuals that are able to do the good work to actually bring this story into the modern era. And another good reason, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in this lecture, is because more than anything else, this story has been misshapen by the popular media. And so there's so many of us that have never been in a Black Studies class, never been in an African history class, who are going to actually see the racist propaganda that is on television every day. Every day. We're going to show you an example of that. Let's move. Here's the way that they describe the story, right? How many of you have a little gray in your hair that remember Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra? The outfits were amazing. The story was garbage. That's the kind of story they attempt to tell. By the way, one of the reasons why they are so fixated on this period is because it's when the Greek people were in control of Kemet. Literally, there were 3 millennia, 3,000 years of history that we can measure, describe, and prove before Cleopatra's family came into Kemet. We also know something interesting about her. It's likely that she was biracial. So instead of Elizabeth Taylor, maybe we should see someone like, I don't know, Halle Berry playing Cleopatra. And so let's be clear about where the story is. You also recently saw this movie, Exodus, Gods and Kings, where we see an Australian playing Ramses the Great. We even see Sigourney Weaver from Aliens playing the mother of Ramses the Great. This is the kind of stuff that literally millions of people see on a daily basis. And of course, you might have even seen this video by Katy Perry, where she played Katy Patra. So clearly you will understand that this story is one that they are trying to actually destroy in the popular media. It is so important for us to actually do theatric and movie productions that tell this story. It is so important. More important, perhaps, than having veritable scholars somewhere on a hill telling this story. Because the majority of people of any ethnicity will not be on that hill. We need to tell the story to the people. And that's why events like this are so important. So important. A brother said to me, I don't think I've ever seen the speaker speaking to the folks before the event. I'm here because I want to speak to you. When scholars who put a lot of work into me, folks like Dr. John Gray Clark, folks like Dr. Yosef Ben Yakadin put work into me, they said to me that I was supposed to be in the community bringing this information. And that's one of the reasons why I was so connected to our dear brother, Franklin G., because I heard him say the same thing. He said he was amazing simply because he was afforded the ability to go to these institutions and learn this story. And so he, like I, we were connected to telling the story to our people in areas, in platforms, in community settings where they could actually have access to it. And so it's so amazing that this event, by the way, a free event. I do lectures all over the country. They ain't free. You know, it costs something to do this, right? You know I'm from Harlem, right? You know, they brought me here, put me up. They had all of these amazing performances. It cost something to do this. But they really, our brother Franklin G. wanted to make sure that everyone would have access to it. And that's why he is my brother. That's why he is my brother. Let's go further. These are the images that you're not supposed to see. These are the images of the Africans in what some people call the golden era of Kemet. So we see once again Namur at the beginning of Kemet. Say Namur with me. Namur. This is the African that puts Kemet together. How in the world could they tell the story of Kemet and not mention the dude that puts the nation together? Not show you his image. You would think that there is no image. But that's part of the propaganda. And then after Kemet falls apart, here once again is King Mentuhotep II. Say Mentuhotep II. There is that statue that is so black that people who don't know the story get really uncomfortable telling it. And I'm telling you, Anika and I like to just stand in the cut sometimes and watch them. We don't always understand the languages they're speaking, but we know what they're saying. And so this is of critical importance. And then after Kemet falls again, we see King Amos. See, look at King Amos. Look at his face, by the way. Who else could we be talking about? He is one of the kings that puts the land back together. His father goes up against the foreign people. He is killed. His older brother goes up against the foreign people. Has a bit more success. He is killed. And then he is too young to go to the throne. Guess who takes the throne next to continue to fight? His mother. She gets on a horse with an axe and leads the army. Her name was Queen Ahotep. Say Ahotep with me. Ahotep. These are stories we need to know. And I'll tell you that I have been so connected to this family that one year when we were in Kemet, I was telling the story, and I really started to really get emotional about the story of this family that fought to expel the foreign rulers from Kemet. We had very little time. And so my wife, you see her over there, look at her over there. She was in the back going like this. And I kept talking. I was talking about this queen. At the end I said, I just had to tell the story. I felt like I was being driven to tell the story. She said, let's get on the bus. What's wrong with you? We get to the museum, the Cairo Museum, the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And we're leading this tour. We have, I think, about 100 people with us on this particular trip. And we get to a point in the museum where it is curiously empty. And I heard a woman's voice. So at first I said, well, maybe Anika got behind me. I looked behind me, there was no one there. I looked back and I saw Anika, who was a master of the language, by the way, reading something with a student in the Meta. And so I said, whose voice was that? I looked up, and whose coffin did I see? Queen Ahotep. By the way, when I ran over there, I must have looked crazy, because there was no label describing whose coffin it was. So here I am running around looking at it. Now the students and the adults come and say, Brother Jabari, what is wrong? I'm like, this has got to be her. Who? Her. Who? This has got to be Ahotep. How do you know? There's no label. And I whispered at first. She said something to me. And I believe that what she said was, you've been talking about me. Tell them I'm here. And so it wasn't until later that Anika and I, after the tour, got the book that has the descriptions of every single piece in the museum, and we could confirm. Not that I needed confirmation, but we can confirm that that was the mother of King Amos. These are stories we need to know. So then after the new kingdom, we see Kemet have another fall. And that is when we see the Nubians come forward and put Kemet back together. You're going to see here King Shabaka. Say Shabaka with me. Shabaka. King Shabaka comes forward. Another king by the name of Pianki, who was his brother, come forward. Pianki is now rendered PA usually. They come forward and they put Kemet back together. These are the 4 golden eras of Kemet. Ain't a European in the mix. When you understand the history, it becomes very clear who these people are. Very, very clear. And so instead of looking at those images, I want you to inoculate you against those European images. Are you ready? Yes. Take a look at this. Builder of the Great Pyramid. Asar, chief deity of Kemet. Look at his nose. This is the author of the world's oldest book, Ptahhotep. Another image of Asar. The queen of Mentuhotep II. Mentuhotep II. Amenemhat II. Asar once more. With a damaged nose. Ptah, another chief deity. Amos and his queen. Queen T as a young woman. Queen Ahotep, who spoke to me, and her daughter, Queen Amos Nefertari. Amenhotep III, King Tutankhamen. Another image of King Tutankhamen, nose damaged once more. Ladies in the temple playing beautiful music. This is PA, the Nubian king that comes forward. Karakamoon. Look at these images. Could we dispute who they are? And then the lady who was the deity of beauty, known as Het Heru, and my queen.